I'm Linda and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to do part 2 of the Gemini Chatbot series. Today we're going to look at how to add external calling to your chatbot. In the previous series, or in the previous video, we looked at how to configure a chatbot and implement function tools within the chatbot. That way, if the user asked a question and the bot had an answer for it, it would flag that function for you. So then you would know that you could call an external site or an external program to retrieve the information needed to answer that question. Now, the questions that I created was, do you have access to my Google Analytics account? How many accounts do you have access to, and what are the names? So what we're going to do in this video is we are going to create a Google Analytics service that will enable us to be able to request that data from Google Analytics. So that will be the plan for today. Now, this is the exact same project that I had before. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a GA service class. And I'm going to initialize it like I did with my previous classes. Initializing it again will allow me to configure some things so that as soon as I instance this class, they will already be configured for me. In this case, I'm going to be loading the service account key file so that I can check whether or not the file was properly, whether or not I have the file. Because the file is being loaded inside of our env vars, or the path to the file is being loaded inside of the env var. So whenever you do something like that, I like to always check to make sure that the file exists, because otherwise you're going to get an error. So that's what we're going to do here. We're just going to make sure that we have that file there. And if we don't, we'll just kick it out as an exception. Now, once that file has been loaded, or once we know the file exists, then we can actually go ahead and create our credentials object. Now, I'm going to have the credentials object as a property within the class, because then I can use it from any of the functions inside the class, and we only have to instance this once, because we don't need to do that more than once with this. So we're going to go ahead and pass it the file that we know exists, because we already have it, and we already checked to see whether it exists. So we have that. And that's it. We've instanced our class, or our credentials object. That's all you need to do with Google Analytics, or with the Google Analytics one. And with Python. They make it really easy with service accounts. If you're going to do this with OAuth, it's going to be slightly different. Now, what we need to do is we need to create a couple of private functions now for within the class. One, to create a client to make requests to the Google Analytics Data API. Now, the Google Analytics Data API requires a different scope than the Google Analytics Admin API. These two APIs give you access to different things. The Google Analytics Data API gives you access to the data within your Google Analytics account. So if you want to build reports, and if you want to see what dimensions and metrics you have to go through the Google Analytics Data API. So we're going to create a beta analytics data client, and this client is where we will be sending all of our requests to the Google Analytics Data API. Now, the Google Analytics Admin API is different. This one gives you access to all of the admin stuff. This is like the old management API. It'll give you access to what accounts and properties and users and stuff. It gives you all of that kind of access. And we're going to need access to that as well. Now, I went ahead and added edit access. I don't think we're going to need edit access. I just kind of, it's a default one I normally use for a service account, but I don't think we need it. I may change that later. So now we have both of our clients. So depending upon which method we're going to be using, we can use those. Now we need to create a function that will get all of the accounts on Google Analytics. There is a method for just getting the accounts, but I like to just use account summary, which basically gives you access to it. It gives you everything, returns everything. You get the accounts, the properties, you get it all. So what we're doing here is we have a default function that will just give us all of the information, and then we can call that from our other functions. And if you go ahead and we can test this now to make sure that we have access. Again, we're just doing this command line. I think we will add a UI to this in the next episode because we're going to be looking at how to chain functions and build up the actual request to request data from Google Analytics. And I think we're going to need a UI to test that. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. And there you go. We have access to the accounts and properties on my Google Analytics account. So that was pretty easy. That was pretty straightforward. Now we want to add this to the chatbot itself, because remember we created 3 functions, or I created a couple more while you were gone. The first one says whether or not I have access. And to find out if you have access, the easiest way of doing that is just to make a call and see how much it has back. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a simple function to say whether or not it has access. I will probably do some better testing on this, because I'm thinking that if the file doesn't exist, then it doesn't have access. If the service account isn't configured properly, it doesn't have access. So this we'll probably tune this has access better. But for now, if I can get a list of accounts back, I have access. That's basically what I'm going to do. All right, so let's go ahead and test this. As we already have the GA service object created, all we have to do then is call has access, and it should return a true or false to see whether or not we have access. All right, so now we know we have access. So let's go ahead and add this over to the chatbot. Instead of having a hard-coded I have access, we can actually get that from the service class that we already created to go over to Google Analytics and answer that question, do I have access? Now, again, I'm putting this F in the front just so that I can see that this text is coming from the actual function call, as opposed to just a text that may have been hallucinated by Gemini. And I do that because I want to be sure that I'm not getting a hallucination. So this way I know 100% yes, I have access. No, I do not have access. So now when this runs, we should get back the proper response with yes, I have access. No, I do not have access. And there we go. We have access. Now, we can go ahead now that we have our Google Analytics class, and we can use that to answer the other questions because we already have get accounts. So we can go ahead now and create 2 more functions. One which will actually just count the accounts that have returned. That's pretty easy because it's part of the list account. So let's go ahead and do that. So we go ahead and we'll create count accounts. Yep. And then all count accounts needs to do is call self or get a length on self get accounts. And then it'll return the number of counts or a number of accounts that we have access to. And we can, again, test that here. I always like to test stuff internally within my classes so that I know it's working. So now what we're going to do is we can plug that in again to the chatbot so that it will be able to tell us exactly how many accounts that it has access to. Because my plan later is for the user to prompt the user to say, well, what profile would you like to make your report on? And then the user may ask, well, what properties do you have access to? And it would be able to return the properties and the accounts that it has access to so that the user could then go ahead and pick which one it wants or they want, which is ideal. So I have access to 2 accounts. So that's perfect. So now what are we going to do for listing the accounts? Because what we want is we want the display text for each account that is returned. So we get a list of all of the accounts, which is the function we already have. That's the one we've been using all along. And we list all the accounts, and then we're going to create an array of display names that we can then return. So we can loop through the summary of all the accounts and then get this display name from the account and append it to our list of display names. Then we can just, parse it into a comma separated or return it as a comma separated string. And then the bot can have that. Again, fine-tuning stuff. Let's just get it to work. There. So we just tested it, and now this works. So now we have a list of the accounts returning. So let's go add the same thing as we did before. I'm going to add it to the bot. So we get the results back. Now I've contemplated whether or not I want to only do this once, but technically it is only once. But I may refactor this and have a function that goes ahead and does all the calls. But for now, this is good. We're probably going to have to refactor this. But for now, I may refactor this offline and then bring you back to in the new video when it's refactored. I'll refactor stuff offline every time after every video, and then we can just get it to work together. So now we can go ahead and run our chatbot, and we should have all of the stuff coming back there. So now it's returning whether or not it has access, how many accounts it has access to, and what accounts it has access to. So now we have a chatbot using functions that actually calls Google Analytics. I call that good for 2 videos. That's not bad. And offline, I don't think this has taken me very long. I should time how long it's been taking me. But I think we're good. I think we're good for 2 videos. That's really good. I'm happy with this. So in the next video, we are going to look at how to add the UI to it. And then I am going to start to piece together how to do a conversational history with it, to prompt it to build a report. I have a test version right now that will return a response if the user says, please build me a report for active users in December. That does work because it's a single report that the user requests. So if the user requests everything that is needed within one, I can return that. But what I'd like to do is something more along the lines with, I'd like to build a report. And the bot says, okay, fine. What property would you like to use? And the user will say 1, 2, 3. And the bot will say, okay, I have access to property 1, 2, 3. What dimensions do you want? And the user will say, well, I want active users and I want country. And then the bot will return, well, active users is a metric, but I can add country as a dimension. Would you like dimension of country and metric as... So we need to be able to have the bot prompt stuff and figure stuff out. And that's what I'm still trying to work out in my brain, how we get to work. So I think that we'll start looking at that in the next video. So the next video is going to be interesting or fun, I think. That's when we're going to start getting into the nitty-gritty, because right now we're just setting up the back-end stuff. And that's what happens a lot in programming, is we just set up the back-end stuff to begin with, and then you get to work on the really fun stuff. But as long as you get the core application stuff, the core framework of your system working in the beginning, then building upon that framework, building upon that core framework is a lot easier. So that's what I hope to be able to teach any new developers out there. This is how I, after 30 years of application development experience, have learned to create applications. Build your core functionality first. These first 2 videos may seem boring, but they're not. They are very important in the future development of this application. Will I release it? I don't know. I might. If we get this to look really good, I suspect I would probably release this and just put it up there and see if anybody wants to use it and play with it. It's really nice as a demo proof of concept. So that's it for today. Now, as always, please like and subscribe. I'd really like to get more people subscribe to this channel. I think I have some valuable content, and I'd really like to help people. So, share the video, like, subscribe, comment. Please comment. Please, I'd love to hear from you. I want to know whether or not there's anybody out there actually watching these videos all the way to the end. So that's it for today. I hope you have a good day, and